The text message from my brother made my stomach clench. Can't wait to hear about all your pro bono cases defending criminals, sis. Maybe you'll finally admit law school was wasted on you. I'm Eliana, and my little brother has always had a talent for getting under my skin. The family reunion invitation sat on my granite countertop like a ticking time bomb. Mom's elegant handwriting promising an evening of family bonding and celebration. What it should have said was passive-aggressive comments and judgment. You could always cancel, Braden suggested, sliding a fresh coffee across my desk. My colleague and closest friend at the firm had endured years of my family drama stories. And give Adrian the satisfaction? Never. I took a sip of the coffee, savoring its bitter warmth. Besides, Mom would never forgive me. You could just tell them the truth, he said, leaning against my office doorframe. Partner at Thompson, Campbell and Associates isn't exactly something to be ashamed of. I shook my head, watching the city lights flicker to life outside my corner office window. They think I'm still a public defender, because that's what Adrian tells everyone. He's convinced himself that's all I'll ever be. The truth was more complicated. Yes, I'd started as a public defender, and I was damn proud of that work. But 5 years ago, Reese Campbell had seen something in me during a high-profile case. Now, at 35, I was the youngest partner in the firm's history. Not that my family knew any of this. My phone buzzed again. Mom this time. Honey, please try to keep the peace tomorrow. Your brother's going through a lot right now. Going through a lot? I scoffed, showing Braden the message. He's going through a divorce because he couldn't keep his hands off his secretary. That's hardly a tragedy. Speaking of which, Braden's expression turned serious. Have you heard who's handling his wife's case? Before I could answer, my assistant Sarah poked her head in. Ms. Sutton, your mother's here. Mom swept into my office like a perfectly coiffed hurricane, her designer handbag swinging. Eliana, darling, I thought we could have lunch before tomorrow's party. I watched Braden make a strategic retreat, mouthing good luck as he disappeared. Mom, I'm working. You can't just show up. In that tiny public defender's office you're always talking about? She glanced around my obviously luxurious office with confusion. This seems different. I'm covering for a friend. I lied smoothly, the same excuse I'd used for years. What's really going on? She sank into one of my client chairs, her perfectly maintained facade cracking slightly. It's your brother. This divorce. It's going to be ugly. Natasha's hired some high-powered firm. Has she? I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. Thompson, Campbell something or other. They're sharks, apparently. Mom wrung her hands. Adrian's beside himself. He says they'll take everything. I bit back a laugh. If she only knew. Maybe he should have thought about that before sleeping with his 24-year-old secretary, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Eliana, he made a mistake. We all make mistakes. She reached across my desk, patting my hand. Just be gentle with him tomorrow? He's been saying some things about you, I know, but he's hurting. The irony was almost too much to bear. Tomorrow night, at our family reunion, Adrian would undoubtedly mock my career choices again. He'd make snide comments about public defenders and wasted potential, completely unaware that on Monday morning, I'd be sitting across from him in a conference room as opposing counsel's partner. I'll behave if he does, I promised, knowing full well what was coming. Mom stood, smoothing her designer dress. That's all I ask. And darling, maybe wear something a little more professional tomorrow? That navy suit you used to have was nice. I glanced down at my Armani pantsuit and Louboutin heels, easily worth more than what Adrian made in a month. I'll see what I can find. After she left, I pulled up Adrian's divorce file on my computer. There it was in black and white. Natasha Evans versus Adrian Sutton. Primary counsel, Reese Campbell. Partner in charge, Eliana Sutton. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Adrian. Hope you're ready for tomorrow, sis. Brought some big news to share. Time to show everyone what real success looks like. I smiled, thinking about Monday morning's meeting. Oh, Adrian, I whispered to my empty office. You have no idea. 5 years earlier, I sat across from Reese Campbell in a cramped courthouse hallway, my public defender's badge feeling like a target on my chest. "You made quite an impression in there," she said, studying me with sharp eyes. "Not many lawyers would have caught that inconsistency in the prosecution's evidence." I clutched my worn briefcase tighter. "Just doing my job." "Your job?" Reese laughed. "You dismantled the DA's entire case. My client was ready to plead guilty until you proved his innocence." That case had been my breakthrough. A young man wrongly accused of armed robbery, his life hanging by a thread. I'd spent weeks piecing together security footage, proving he'd been across town when the crime occurred. "I believe in being thorough," I said, standing to leave. "Wait!" Reese handed me her business card. "Come see me next week. I think you're wasting your talent here." That memory played through my mind as I walked into the family reunion, fashionably late. The country club's banquet room buzzed with conversation, crystal glasses clinking as relatives mingled. "There's my favorite failure!" Adrian's voice boomed across the room. He was already 3 drinks in, his designer suit slightly rumpled. "Still saving the world one criminal at a time?" "Adrian!" I nodded coolly, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. "You know," he continued, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear, "I just closed a 7-figure deal last week. Meanwhile, my big sister's probably still making what, 40 grand a year?" Our cousin Maria winced. "Adrian, maybe we should—" No, let's hear about Eliana's noble sacrifice," he interrupted. "Tell us, sis, how many drug dealers did you keep out of jail this month?" I took a deliberate sip of champagne. "Actually, I've moved on from criminal defense." "Oh?" His eyebrows shot up. "Finally admitted defeat?" Before I could respond, Mom appeared between us. "Children, please. Adrian, honey, maybe you should slow down on the drinks." "I'm celebrating, Mom." He threw an arm around her shoulders. "Did you tell her my news? About the merger?" "I was just about to," Mom said, shooting me a warning look. "Adrian's company is merging with—" A commotion near the entrance cut her off. Heads turned as Braden burst into the room, tablet in hand. He caught my eye and gestured urgently. "Excuse me," I murmured, extracting myself from the family circle. In the hallway, Braden thrust the tablet at me. "You need to see this." The headline made my blood run cold. "Tech CEO Adrian Sutton's divorce takes ugly turn. Insider trading allegations surface." "It just broke," Braden said quietly. "Natasha's claiming she has evidence he was trading on non-public information." Through the banquet room doors, I could hear Adrian's loud laughter. "The merger's going to make us millions! To success!" "This changes everything," I said, scanning the article. "If these allegations are true—" "That's not all." Braden swiped to another page. "Look who's representing him." Jesus Thompson's name jumped out at me. The same Jesus Thompson who'd tried to poach my biggest client last year, who dismissed me as that public defender playing at corporate law. "Perfect," I muttered. "Just perfect." My phone vibrated, Reese calling. I answered on the first ring. "Tell me you've seen the news," she said without preamble. "I'm looking at it now. The insider trading allegations. Change everything," she finished. "Listen, Eliana, I know he's your brother, but this case just got a lot bigger. If you want to recuse yourself—" "No," my voice was firm. "I'm staying on." Through the doors, I could hear Adrian holding court. "My sister? Oh, she means well, but some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues. Public defenders are important, I guess. But let's be honest. It's where lawyers go when they can't hack it in the real world." Braden touched my arm. "You okay?" I handed him back the tablet, straightening my shoulders. "You know what the funny thing is? 5 years ago, when Reese offered me the job, Adrian told me I'd never survive in corporate law. Said I didn't have the killer instinct. And now? Now he's about to find out just how wrong he was." I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Mom. Monday morning's meeting should be interesting. "Speaking of which," Braden grinned, "what are you going to wear?" Something expensive, I said, pushing open the banquet room doors. Very, very expensive. Adrian's voice carried across the room. To my incredible success, and to my sister, bless her heart, still fighting the good fight in her little public defender's office. I raised my glass in his direction, smiling. In less than 48 hours, his world would implode, and I would be there to watch it happen. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I stood in the courthouse, adjusting my crimson Chanel suit, while Reese reviewed our notes one final time. The Morrison case is straightforward, she said. Just don't let opposing counsel rattle you. I smiled, thinking of the much bigger confrontation looming later that day. When do they ever? The courtroom doors opened, and I strode in with the confidence that came from years of victories. 2 hours later, the judge's gavel fell with a satisfying crack. Motion granted in favor of the plaintiff, she announced. Outside the courtroom, Reese squeezed my shoulder. Brilliant work. Now, are you ready for this afternoon? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Adrian's name flashed on the screen, along with a text. Meeting with my hotshot lawyers today. Gonna crush this divorce thing. Wish you had the skills to see a real lawyer in action. Oh, I'll have a front row seat, I muttered. Ms. Sutton? Our assistant appeared, looking nervous. Natasha Evans is here for your 11 o'clock. I found Natasha waiting in my office, perfectly put together in designer clothes that Adrian had probably bought her. She stood when I entered, extending her hand. I had no idea you were... She gestured vaguely. Adrian always said that I was a struggling public defender, I finished, gesturing for her to sit. Yes, he likes that story. I'm sorry, she said quietly. If I'd known you were his sister, I wouldn't have... Stop. I held up a hand. You hired this firm because we're the best. My relationship with Adrian doesn't change that. Reese entered, carrying a thick file. Let's talk about these insider trading allegations. Natasha's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. I found the emails 3 months ago. He was using information from board meetings to tip off investors. The merger. It's not what everyone thinks. Does he know you have this evidence? I asked. No. She pulled out her phone, showing us a series of screenshots. He thinks I'm just after the money. He has no idea. That he could go to prison, Reese finished. My stomach twisted. As much as Adrian deserved to be taken down a peg, this was serious. Have you shown these to anyone else? Just my friend at the SEC, Natasha said. She's the one who told me to get a lawyer. A knock interrupted us. Braden poked his head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Jesus Thompson is here. He's early for the 2 o'clock and making a scene in reception. Of course he is, I muttered. Natasha, would you excuse us? In the reception area, Jesus Thompson stood in an expensive Italian suit, radiating arrogance. Where's Campbell? I'm not dealing with associates today. Actually, I stepped forward, you'll be dealing with me. He looked me up and down dismissively. And you are? Eliana Sutton, managing partner for this case. His eyes narrowed. Sutton? Any relation to the client you're representing? Yes. I smiled coldly. Shall we move this to the conference room? Jesus's face reddened. This is a conflict of interest. I'll have you disbarred. You'll do nothing of the sort, Reese said, appearing beside me. We've already cleared it with the ethics board. Now shall we discuss the terms of your client's surrender, or would you like to continue making threats? The elevator dinged. Adrian stepped out, his usual smirk freezing when he saw me. Eliana? He looked between me and Jesus. What are you doing here? Working, I said simply. Conference room 3 is this way. Adrian grabbed Jesus's arm. What's going on? Why is my sister here? Because, I turned to face him fully, I'm the partner handling your wife's divorce case. Surprise. The color drained from his face. But, you're a public defender. No, Adrian. I'm the lawyer you always claimed I couldn't be. I gestured to the conference room. Now, let's discuss those insider trading allegations, shall we? What allegations? He stumbled slightly. This is ridiculous. Jesus, do something. Yeah, actually, Reese interjected. Perhaps we should start with the evidence Natasha provided. The emails make for fascinating reading. Adrian's swagger evaporated. Emails? What emails? I opened the conference room door, enjoying the way his hands shook as he reached for his phone. All will be explained. Please, take a seat. Mom's going to hear about this, he threatened weakly. Oh, I'm counting on it. I placed a thick folder on the table. Now, about those stock trades you made last quarter. The door closed behind us with a soft click, and for the first time in our lives, Adrian looked at me with something new in his eyes. Fear. You can't do this to me! Adrian's voice cracked as he paced my office later that evening. I'm your brother! Exactly, my brother who spent years mocking my career choices. I remained seated behind my desk, watching him unravel. How does it feel to know your struggling public defender sister holds your future in her hands? Mom called me 6 times during that meeting, he said, running his hands through his hair. What am I supposed to tell her? The truth might be refreshing. The door opened and Braden entered with 2 cups of coffee, stopping short when he saw Adrian. Sorry, I didn't realize. No, stay, I said, accepting the coffee. Adrian was just leaving. This isn't over, Adrian snapped, storming out. Braden settled into the chair across from me. That went well. He didn't even acknowledge the insider trading evidence, I said, rubbing my temples. Just kept sputtering about betrayal and family loyalty. Speaking of family, Braden nodded toward my phone, which was lighting up with another call from Mom. I answered on speaker. Hi, Mom. Eliana Marie Sutton. Her voice filled the office. How could you ambush your brother like this? He's devastated. Devastated that he got caught, I corrected. Did he tell you about the illegal stock trades? That's just business, she faltered. You don't understand how these things work. Actually, Mom, I understand perfectly. It's literally my job to understand. A job you never told us about? She paused, and I could picture her pacing her kitchen. All these years, letting us think. Why didn't you tell us? Would it have mattered? Adrian made sure everyone saw me as a failure. You never questioned his version of events. That's not fair. No, what's not fair is watching my brother commit securities fraud while mocking my career choices. I caught Braden's supportive nod. The evidence is solid, Mom. He's in serious trouble. Then help him. You're his sister. I'm also an officer of the court. What he did was illegal. The line went quiet for a moment. Your father would be so disappointed in you. The words hit like a physical blow. Braden reached across the desk, but I waved him off. Dad taught us about integrity, I said quietly. About doing what's right, even when it's hard. I wonder what he'd think about Adrian's choices. She hung up without responding. You okay? Braden asked. Before I could answer, my assistant Sarah buzzed in. Ms. Sutton, Natasha Evans is here again. She says it's urgent. Natasha burst in before I could respond, clutching her phone. He's threatening to expose my past. Says if I don't drop the case, he'll tell everyone about my DUI from college. Let me see, I said, taking her phone. Adrian's text messages were a desperate mix of threats and pleading. Drop the case or everyone learns about your mistake. Think about your reputation. I'll destroy you. Classic Adrian, I muttered, always attacking when he's cornered. Can he do this? Natasha's hands trembled. No, I said firmly. This is witness intimidation. We can add it to the pile. My phone buzzed again. Jesus Thompson calling. I put it on speaker. Your brother's willing to deal, he said without preamble. Full financial settlement. Natasha gets what she wants. We just need the insider trading evidence destroyed. That's not happening, I replied. The SEC's already involved. Think about your family, Eliana. Once this goes public, are you actually suggesting I commit a felony to help cover up another felony? I interrupted. Careful, Jesus. That could get us both disbarred. He hung up with a curse. Braden leaned forward. What's your play here? I looked at Natasha, then back at the mounting evidence on my desk. We push forward. Adrian needs to learn actions have consequences. He'll never forgive you, Natasha said softly. Maybe, but I'll never forgive myself if I let him continue thinking he's above the law. My phone lit up with another text from Adrian. Final chance, sis. Back off or this gets ugly. You're not the only one with secrets. I showed it to Braden, who whistled low. He's desperate. Good, I said, reaching for my briefcase. That means we're winning. Where are you going? Natasha asked. To see my mother, I stood, straightening my jacket. It's time she learned who her children really are. As I headed for the elevator, Braden called after me. What if Adrian's right? What if this destroys your family? I turned back, thinking of all the years of mockery, the dismissive comments, the constant belittling of my choices. Some things, I said quietly, need to be destroyed before they can be rebuilt. The elevator doors closed, and I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. Adrian had always accused me of lacking killer instinct. He was about to learn just how wrong he'd been. The pre-settlement conference room felt like a pressure cooker. Adrian sat across the table, flanked by Jesus, and another attorney I didn't recognize. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by dark circles under his eyes and a slightly rumpled collar. Before we begin, Jesus announced, my client has prepared a statement. Save it, Reese cut in. We're here to discuss numbers and criminal liability. Adrian's head snapped up. Criminal liability? This is a divorce settlement. It was, I said, sliding a folder across the table, until we found these. The new attorney, a nervous-looking man named Paul, opened the folder and blanched. Mr. Thompson, a word? They huddled in whispered conversation, while Adrian stared at me, his face a mix of anger and fear. What did you give them? Everything, Natasha answered from beside me. The emails, the phone records, the offshore accounts. You vindictive bit. Choose your next words carefully, I interrupted. They're being recorded. Jesus returned to the table, his confidence visibly shaken. We need to discuss parameters. Parameters? Reese laughed. Your client committed securities fraud. The SEC has been notified. The only parameters we're discussing are how much prison time he's facing. Prison? Adrian's voice cracked. Eliana, you can't be serious. We're family. Funny how you only remember that when you need something. The door opened and my assistant entered with a note. I read it and felt my stomach drop. Mom's in the lobby, I announced. She's demanding to be let in. Adrian's face lit up with hope. Yes, let her in. She'll talk sense into you. I nodded to my assistant, and moments later, Mom swept in wearing her best fixing things outfit. This has gone far enough, she declared. Eliana, you're dropping this case immediately. Actually, Reese interjected, she's not. And who are you two? I'm the founding partner of this firm, Reese stood. And your daughter is one of our most valuable partners. She's not going anywhere. Mom's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. Partner. Surprise, I said dryly. Turns out the struggling public defender did okay for herself. But... Mom sank into an empty chair. All this time, I confirmed, I let Adrian spin his little narrative because it was easier than fighting it. But now, I turned to my brother. Now you've crossed a line that family can't fix. The SEC will be here in 20 minutes, Reese added. Last chance for a deal. Jesus leaned over to whisper in Adrian's ear. My brother's face went through a rapid series of emotions before settling on defeat. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Full financial disclosure, I began. Natasha gets 70% of all assets. You admit to the insider trading, cooperate with the SEC investigation, and take whatever plea deal they offer. That's insane, Mom protested. Adrian, don't you dare! Mom! Adrian's voice was hollow. Stop! She has everything. The emails, the trades, the shell companies. She has it all. But she's your sister. She can't testify against you. That's spousal privilege, Mom, I corrected. Siblings can absolutely testify against each other, and I will. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock. Finally, Adrian reached for the settlement papers with a shaking hand. You've won, he said, not meeting my eyes. You've finally proven you're better than me. Happy? This was never about being better than you, I replied. It was about being better than what you thought I was. He signed the papers without another word. Mom started crying quietly. The SEC agents will want to speak with you next, Reese informed him. I suggest you cooperate fully. It might mean the difference between 5 years and 10. Adrian stood on unsteady legs. I need some air before they arrive. Don't even think about running, Jesus warned. It'll only make things worse. As Adrian headed for the door, he paused beside my chair. For what it's worth, he said softly, I was wrong about you. You're not just a killer lawyer, you're ruthless. No, I corrected him. I'm just not afraid of you anymore. He nodded once and left. Mom followed, pausing only to say, I hope this was worth destroying our family. After they were gone, Natasha touched my arm. Thank you. For everything. I watched through the conference room windows as Adrian waited by the elevators, shoulders slumped, his whole world crumbling around him. The brother who had tormented me for years now looked small and broken. You okay? Reese asked quietly. Ask me again when this is over, I replied, gathering my papers. The SEC will be here soon. Let's finish this. The elevator dinged, and I watched Adrian step inside, disappearing behind closing doors. It felt like the end of something, but also, maybe, the beginning of something else. Something true. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. Tech CEO faces securities fraud charges, splashed across every financial website, accompanied by Adrian's corporate headshot. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Your brother's asking to see you, Braden said, appearing in my doorway. He's in the building's lobby. I found Adrian sitting alone on a leather bench, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His designer suit was replaced by khakis and a wrinkled polo shirt. They froze my accounts, he said without looking up. All of them. That's standard procedure in fraud cases. Jesus dropped me as a client. He laughed bitterly. Said I'm too toxic now. Mom's not answering my calls. Even my doorman looked at me differently this morning. What do you want, Adrian? He finally met my eyes. Help me fix this. It's too late for that. Is it? He stood, desperation clear in his voice. You're the best lawyer I know. Yes, I can admit that now. There has to be something. The only thing left is to cooperate fully and hope for leniency. I crossed my arms. The evidence is overwhelming. Because my wife betrayed me. Because my sister. Because you broke the law. I cut him off. Repeatedly and deliberately. This isn't about betrayal. It's about consequences. The lobby security guard was watching us nervously. Adrian noticed and deflated slightly. You know what the worst part is? He said quietly. All those years I spent mocking you, you were becoming everything I pretended to be. Successful, respected, powerful. You didn't just mock me, Adrian. You actively tried to diminish me. Every family gathering, every holiday, every chance you got. Because I was jealous. The words exploded out of him, echoing through the lobby. You were always the smart one, the driven one, Dad's favorite. Dad's been gone for 15 years. Nah, and you're still trying to make him proud while I'm... He gestured vaguely at himself. This. The elevator dinged, and Reese stepped out, followed by 2 SEC agents I recognized from yesterday's interviews. Mr. Sutton, one of them called. We have some follow-up questions. Adrian's shoulders slumped. I suppose this is karma. No, I said. This is justice. There's a difference. Miss Sutton, the other agent nodded to me. We'll need to speak with you as well. Of course. I turned back to Adrian. Get a good criminal defense attorney. Not a flashy one, a competent one. I can recommend several. You're still looking out for me. he said wonderingly. After everything. You're still my brother. That doesn't mean I'll save you from your own choices. The agents led Adrian toward a conference room, but he paused at the door. Hey, Eliana. Remember when we were kids and I pushed you off your bike? You said I'd never learn to ride it anyway. But you did. The next day, you got right back on. I should have known then that you'd always prove me wrong. The conference room door closed behind him, and Reese appeared at my side. Your mother's giving interviews, she said softly, claiming you manipulated the evidence to destroy your brother. Of course she is. I checked my phone. 5 missed calls from Mom, and a text. How could you do this to our family? The partners want to release a statement, Reese continued. Show our support for you. No. I watched through the glass as Adrian slumped in his chair, answering the agent's questions. Let the evidence speak for itself. My phone buzzed again. Natasha this time. Just saw the news. Are you okay? Before I could respond, the elevator opened and Jesus Thompson strode out, heading straight for me. You've made a powerful enemy, he growled. Threatening opposing counsel? I raised an eyebrow. That's a bold choice for someone facing potential conspiracy charges. His face reddened. I had no knowledge of— Save it for the ethics board, Reese interrupted. I believe they're very interested in your involvement. Jesus stormed off, nearly colliding with Braden, who was approaching with coffee. Your mom's on line 1, he said, handing me a cup. Again, let it ring. I watched Adrian through the conference room window, remembering all the times he'd torn me down, all the years of subtle and not so subtle jabs. Was it worth it? Braden asked quietly. In the conference room, Adrian buried his face in his hands as the agents presented more evidence. Through the glass, I could see his shoulders shaking. Ask me in 10 years, I replied, turning away from the window. Right now, I have work to do. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Mom. Your father would be ashamed. I typed back 3 words before silencing my phone. No, he wouldn't. Then I straightened my jacket and headed back to my office, leaving my brother to face the consequences of his choices, just as I had faced mine all those years ago. The courtroom fell silent as I approached the podium. Adrian sat at the defendant's table, his new attorney, a competent, no-nonsense woman named Rachel, beside him. 3 months had passed since the scandal broke, and today would determine his fate. Your Honor, I began, I'm here today not as the defendant's sister, but as counsel for Natasha Evans, whose divorce settlement is intrinsically linked to these criminal proceedings. The judge nodded. Proceed, Ms. Sutton. The evidence before you shows a clear pattern of securities fraud spanning 3 years. I gestured to the exhibits displayed on the courtroom screens. Mr. Sutton didn't just break the law. He built his entire business model around breaking it. Adrian wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom sat in the back row, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. The defense claims these were isolated incidents, I continued, mistakes made under pressure. The evidence tells a different story. Rachel stood. Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is editorializing. Overruled. Continue, Ms. Sutton. I pulled up the email chain that had started everything. This exchange from March clearly shows premeditation. Quote, the board doesn't know yet. Buy now before the announcement. Delete this email. Adrian flinched. In the gallery, I heard Mom's sharp intake of breath. The prosecution has already established criminal liability, I said. I'm here to ensure that the civil penalties reflect the scope of the damage. My client's entire marriage was built on fraudulent gains. Your Honor, Rachel interrupted, Ms. Sutton's personal relationship with the defendant creates an obvious conflict, which was reviewed and approved by the ethics board, I countered. My relationship with the defendant gives me unique insight into the pattern of deception. The judge leaned forward. Are you prepared to testify to that effect, Ms. Sutton? I am. I turned to face Adrian directly. For years, I watched my brother manipulate facts to serve his narrative. He convinced our entire family I was a failure while he committed federal crimes. The pattern is clear. Objection! Rachel stood again. Counsel is testifying. Sustained. The judge frowned. Stay on point, Ms. Sutton. I nodded, pulling up the financial records. The defendant's actions resulted in over $12 million in fraudulent gains. The proposed settlement of 70% to Ms. Evans is more than fair. It represents only the legitimate portions of their joint assets. Adrian whispered something to Rachel, who shook her head sharply. Furthermore, I continued, we ask the court to consider these civil penalties in conjunction with the criminal charges. Mr. Sutton's cooperation, while late, has been helpful in identifying other participants in the scheme. Jesus Thompson, sitting in the back near Mom, shifted uncomfortably. The SEC's investigation is ongoing, I concluded, but the damage to innocent investors is clear. We ask the court to approve the settlement as structured. The judge reviewed her notes. Ms. Rachel, your response? Adrian's attorney rose. Your Honor, while we don't contest the basic facts, we believe Ms. Sutton's personal vendetta. Objection, Reese called from our table. Sustained, the judge said. Counsel, stick to the settlement terms. Rachel adjusted her approach. We request a more equitable distribution, considering my client's cooperation. His cooperation came only after he was caught, I interrupted, and only after attempting to intimidate witnesses. The judge held up her hand. I've heard enough. Based on the evidence presented, I'm approving the settlement as structured. Mr. Sutton, please rise. Adrian stood on shaky legs. The civil penalties in this case will be addressed separately from your criminal sentencing next week, she continued. But let me be clear. Your attempts to blame family dynamics for your criminal behavior are not persuasive. Your Honor, Rachel started. No. The judge's voice was firm. The evidence is overwhelming. The settlement stands. She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. As people began filing out, Adrian turned to me. Happy now? No, I replied honestly. But it's done. Mom approached, her face tight with anger. I hope you're satisfied, destroying your brother's life for some petty revenge. Mom. Adrian's voice was tired. Stop. She didn't destroy anything. I did this to myself. The admission seemed to shock her into silence. Reese appeared at my elbow. SEC wants to talk to us about Thompson's involvement. I nodded, gathering my files. As I turned to leave, Adrian called after me. Hey, sis. His voice cracked slightly. Remember when we were kids and you wanted to be a superhero? What about it? You said you wanted to fight for justice. He smiled sadly. Guess you got your wish. I watched as the bailiff led him away, Mom trailing behind them, still clutching her handbag. The courtroom emptied until only Reese and I remained. You okay? She asked. Ask me after his criminal sentencing next week. I straightened my jacket. Right now, we have more work to do. We walked out together, leaving behind the echoes of family bonds, broken and reformed in the pursuit of justice. Sometimes I realized being a hero meant making the hardest choices, even when they hurt the ones we love. The prison visiting room smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Adrian sat across from me in his beige jumpsuit, looking smaller than I remembered. 3 years into his 5-year sentence, this was only our second visit. You cut your hair, he said by way of greeting. You grew a beard. I gestured to his face. It suits you. Not much choice in here. He fidgeted with his sleeve. Thanks for coming. I wasn't sure you would. Your letter was convincing. He nodded, glancing around the room where other inmates visited with family. Mom finally stopped sending money to my commissary account. I know. She called me about it. Really? His eyebrows shot up. You two are talking again? We had lunch last week. I smiled slightly. She admitted she might have been wrong about a few things. Adrian leaned forward, lowering his voice. Is it true what I heard about Jesus Thompson? 15 years? 17. Turns out he was running schemes with half a dozen other clients. Your cooperation helped bring that to light. Karma's a bitch, he muttered, then caught himself. Sorry, I'm trying to be better about everything. The prison therapist you mentioned in your letter, she's helping? Dr. Chen. He nodded. She's the one who suggested I reach out to you, said I needed to stop blaming others for my choices. A guard walked past, and we fell silent until he passed. I saw your name in the paper, Adrian said. That big civil rights case you won? You're following my cases? Everyone I can find. He smiled weakly. Turns out the prison library gets all the major papers. I've become quite the legal scholar. Better late than never. Yeah. He rubbed his face. Listen, I've been practicing what to say to you for months. Can I just... I nodded. I was jealous, he said simply. Not just of your success, but of your integrity. You knew who you were, what you stood for. I was so busy trying to look successful that I forgot to actually be good at anything real. Adrian, let me finish. He held up a hand. What I did was wrong. Not just the fraud, but how I treated you. All those years of putting you down, making you feel small. I did it because I felt small, and I'm sorry. The words hung between us, heavy with decades of history. Natasha got remarried, I said finally. I know, to that kindergarten teacher. He smiled genuinely. Good for her. She deserves to be happy. A bell rang, signaling the end of visiting hours. Before you go, Adrian said quickly, I have something for you. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. Made it in the woodshop here. It was a carefully drawn blueprint for a bicycle, the same model I'd learned to ride on after he pushed me off. Thought maybe, he hesitated, maybe when I get out, I could build one. For your kid. I stared at him. How did you know I was... Mom mentioned you've been sick in the mornings. He shrugged. I can do math. I haven't told anyone at work yet. Secret's safe with me. He stood as the guard approached. For what it's worth, you're going to be an amazing mother. You always were better at taking care of people than I was. I tucked the blueprint into my bag. You know, they have a law library here. Yeah? Could always use some pro bono help with research, if you're interested. His face lit up. Really? You said you're following my cases. Might as well make yourself useful. The guard cleared his throat. Time's up. Adrian nodded. Thank you for coming, for listening, for everything. That's what big sisters do. No, he said seriously. That's what good people do. I'm just sorry it took me so long to see that. As I gathered my things, he called after me. Hey, Eliana. Yeah? When the baby comes, will you tell them about me? I turned back. I'll tell them their uncle is learning to be brave enough to face the truth. That sometimes the hardest victories are the ones we win over ourselves. Still talking like a lawyer, he smiled. Still your sister, I replied. Walking out of the prison, I placed a hand on my stomach, thinking about cycles breaking and new beginnings. My phone buzzed, Braden reminding me about tomorrow's deposition. The world of justice and consequences continued turning, but something had shifted, like a broken bone finally setting right. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Sometimes that's enough of a victory to build a future on. I took one last look at the prison before getting in my car. The blueprint in my bag felt like a promise, not of perfection, but of possibility. Sometimes that's all any of us can ask for. That and the courage to keep pedaling forward, no matter how many times we fall.
You can't be serious, Derek. The words tumbled out before I could even process the document he'd just slapped down in front of me. Divorce papers. We were just hours away from leaving for our dream honeymoon in Bali, and my fiancé of 2 years wanted to call the whole wedding off. I glared up at him, rage boiling inside me. Explain yourself. Now. Derek swallowed, avoiding my searing gaze. It's my parents. They insist on coming with us on the trip, or else they'll make you divorce me? Is that what our relationship means to you? No, Marissa, that's not. Save it. I held up a hand. Blood roared in my ears. After all my efforts navigating his manipulative family, he still bent to their every command. I refuse to spend my honeymoon catering to your overbearing mother's ego. Please try to understand, Derek pleaded. It's just how my family is. Traditional. They feel like they should be included in all major events. I crossed my arms. And you didn't think to mention this sooner? We sent out the invitations months ago. Everything is booked. I know. He slumped down in the nearest chair. I thought if I told you earlier, you'd call the wedding off. Mom insisted I wait until the last second. Cold fury washed over me. So this ambush was strategic. Evelyn deliberately chose our weakest moment to force her demands. Now the coward expected sympathy? I met his watery gaze, anger broiling inside me. How could I have been so stupid to not see through this ruse? He sipped vodka, liquid courage to gaslight me. Behind his pathetic facade hid a spineless mama's boy, drunk on control. My voice dropped to a venomous whisper. Get out. I'm calling this thing off myself. Panic flashed across Derek's face. Marissa, please, we can work through this. He reached for my hand. I recoiled sharply. Don't touch me. It's clear where your priorities lie, and frankly, I refuse to play second fiddle to your lunatic family. He flinched like I'd slapped him across the face. A year ago, that vulnerability would have softened me, but now the gesture only fanned my fury. How many times had his toxic relatives belittled, undermined, and insulted me? I was done being silenced and pushed around. I strode forward until we stood nose to nose. If you had an ounce of integrity, you'd stand up to them instead of hiding behind Mommy's skirt like an infant. My finger jabbed into his chest, punctuating each remark as his eyes bugged with fear. But unfortunately, you were raised to be helpless, weak, codependent. With impeccable timing, his phone rang. Evelyn's smug face flashed on the screen. I spun away before I slapped her image off the table. This ended now. I would not be blindsided again. As I packed my bags, resolve fortified my shaking limbs. If it was war Evelyn wanted, then war she would have. The morning light filtering into my studio provided little warmth as I scrutinized the guest list for our would-be wedding reception. One by one, I mentally cataloged each name based on their level of enmeshment with Evelyn's toxic web of social connections. I reflected bitterly how I once viewed this list as the bonding of my chosen family with Derek's. How naive I'd been. A knock interrupted my brooding. My assistant Josie entered, her arms full of fabric samples for an upcoming client consultation. One look at my expression and her cheerful smile faded. What's wrong? She dropped the swatches on my desk with a soft whump. Did that witch make trouble again? I let out a harsh laugh. That's putting it mildly. Over the next half hour, I recounted the ambush and ensuing fallout. Josie's shock shifted to outrage the more details I shared. That absolute harpy, Josie exploded, crashing her fist on my desk. Model houses and fabric samples jumped. She planned this sabotage from the start, waited until you couldn't back out without losing thousands. I dropped my head in my hands with a groan. I walked straight into their trap. I should have trusted my instincts when his family resisted every wedding plan. Josie clasped my shoulder, her expression solemn. This wasn't your fault. Derek misled you, probably under orders from that gorgon he calls mother. Anger reignited in my gut. Josie was right. Evelyn orchestrated this pretense of support while plotting my removal once I fully committed. I thought of her smug expression when I asked for input on centerpieces, cake designs, vows. My head jerked upward. The speech. Josie frowned. What speech? I gripped her wrist, mind racing. My bridesmaid's speech, where I planned to publicly thank Evelyn for welcoming me into their family. I groaned, envisioning her barely concealed delight. She knew I'd be humiliated when Derek left me at the altar. Josie's eyes narrowed to slits. That heartless witch! I strode toward my mock-ups and fabric samples. A plan was formulating. Evelyn's machinations had provided the perfect ammunition. Now I would deploy it against her. I turned to Josie with new conviction. Help me tear this place apart. We need to examine every wedding-related item with Evelyn's fingerprints. There must be more evidence of her plotting. Josie met my gaze, mirroring my look of dawning comprehension. Together we would expose Evelyn's deceit and render her the social pariah she deserved to be. Derek may have abandoned our partnership, but I had Josie's fierce loyalty, and that meant everything to me now. Let's give that old crone a taste of her own medicine, Josie said through gritted teeth. I squeezed her hand, gratitude and anticipation coursing through me. Game on, Evelyn. Your reckoning is coming. The following weeks passed in a blur of late nights poured over scandalous wedding mementos. Each custom invitation mocked me. Evelyn's fingerprints all over the intricate floral details she insisted complement the lace and chiffon monstrosity of a dress she selected. Like a spider, the cunning woman spun her web slowly, ensnaring me strand by silken strand. Josie became my anchor during this turbulent period. Together we dissected the mountain of wedding debris occupying my studio space, seeking any clue that could aid my vengeance. "Bingo!" Josie yelled late one Tuesday night. I jerked awake where I had nodded off at my work table, nearly upending my stone-cold coffee. Josie stood near the mock altar, holding a framed photo from Derek's cousin's wedding 2 years prior. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle you," she said, "but look what I found in the pile of Derek's stuff." I squinted at the image of Derek dancing with a blonde woman, their bodies pressed together suggestively. My gut twisted with anger and vindication. So Derek's wandering eye wasn't a recent development after all. Josie shook her head with disgust. "I remember Evelyn boasting this was the event where Derek introduced her to you. Guess she conveniently forgot the part where her darling boy toy got handsy with another woman behind his girlfriend's back." My fists clenched with the urge to hurl something fragile. Instead, I took a deep breath. "Have that photo printed and discreetly show a few key people. Let the gossip mill do some work for us." Josie's grin turned wolfish. "With pleasure. I know just who to share this with, too. That will get tongues wagging." She tucked the frame under her arm and sauntered out. As the door swung shut, my phone buzzed with an incoming text. The name sapped the momentary satisfaction right out of me. Derek. Speak of the devil. I stared down at the screen, debating between ignoring it and indulging my curiosity. Curiosity won out. "Derek, hey babe, Mom's still pretty upset about us postponing the wedding. Wants to meet up to clear the air." I scowled. The gall of that woman playing innocent while her spineless son begged me to reconcile with her. Evelyn orchestrated this entire debacle. If anyone owed apologies, it was her. Still, the text presented an opportunity. Perhaps I could covertly gather intel for my brewing plot. And honestly, I craved watching Evelyn squirm when she realized her machinations failed. After some consideration, I typed a response. "Me, fine. Meet me tomorrow at our old cafe, just you and me. Leave your mother out of this." Derek began typing immediately, but I silenced my phone and headed home before he could worm his way back into my thoughts further. I needed rest for the performance of a lifetime tomorrow. Evelyn would rue the day she chose me as her adversary. With Josie's help securing damning evidence, I would avenge myself yet. I arrived at the cafe early, surveying the space like a cougar seeking vulnerable prey. Fortunately, the quaint shop was nearly empty, save a few patrons nibbling scones with textbooks or laptops. I selected a small table in the back corner, ideal for monitoring the entrance while remaining inconspicuous. Right on time, the bell above the door chimed. I glimpsed Derek's sandy hair first as he scanned the room. His shoulders sagged with relief, spotting me tucked away. Odd. I expected to see his mother latched onto him despite my explicit request she not attend. Derek approached my table cautiously, as if nearing a hissing viper instead of his ex-fiancée. He cleared his throat. "Hey, Marissa. Thanks for agreeing to meet me." I gestured curtly to the seat across from me. Best to get straight to business since he decided to follow my instructions for once. Might as well use the opportunity for intelligence gathering. As Derek settled into his chair, I crossed my arms against my chest as a makeshift shield. His eyes held that familiar puppy dog look I once found so charming. Now it only amplified my disgust. How could I have loved such a feeble coward? "Well?" I prompted when the silence stretched uncomfortably. "You insisted on this little chat, so speak." He winced at my biting tone. "Right, I know tensions are high lately with my family." I cut him off with a sharp laugh. "Are you seriously trying to blame your mother for ambushing me with divorce papers days before our wedding? I'm aware of her manipulations, but you stood there holding the dagger, Derek." "I didn't want to." He held up placating hands to halt my tirade. "Mom gave me no choice, said I had to show my loyalty or she'd cut me off." My lip curled with disgust. "So it all came down to money then?" I leaned forward, time to poke the viper's nest. "Well, you chose, and in doing so revealed exactly where we stood all along. That backstabbing display proved our relationship was a sham. Derek visibly paled. "Come on, Marissa, don't say that. I still care deeply for you." His voice dropped. "I was just protecting our future." I let out an acidic laugh that burned my throat. "Our future? Don't make me laugh." I gripped his chin, relishing his wince. "The only future you were protecting was your own, spineless as ever." I shoved his face away and grabbed my bag, resolved to purge this poison from my life forever. His gasps and stammers faded behind me as I strode proudly into my hard-won freedom. I strode out of the cafe with adrenaline pumping through my veins. The confrontation went even better than I imagined. Derek crumbled under the slightest pressure, revealing his spinelessness and Evelyn's vice grip on him. My suspicions were confirmed. Their family orchestrated this sabotage for financial gain, caring nothing for my dreams they eagerly crushed. Well, no more. I refused to waste another minute dwelling on their toxic web of lies. As I rounded the street corner, focused on hailing a taxi, my phone rang loudly. I didn't need to glance at the name flashing across the screen to guess who interrupted my dramatic exit. Likely the sniveling coward wanted the last word to salve his wounded pride. "What do you want, Derek?" I answered briskly, my tone sharp enough to sever bone. An acidic chuckle answered me instead. "Come now, dear, is that any way to speak to your future mother-in-law?" I froze in my tracks, knuckles whitening around my phone. "Evelyn," I hissed between clenched teeth. "To what do I owe the displeasure?" Her answering laugh oozed false sympathy. "Oh, I just had the most distressing chat with my son. He's absolutely inconsolable after your callous treatment earlier." Red flashed across my vision. I trembled with rage barely contained. "Callous? I'm not the one who ambushed my fiancé with divorce papers and ridiculous ultimatums days before our wedding." Each word shot out like bullets from a machine gun. If anyone has been callous, deceitful, and manipulative here, it's you. A weighty pause followed my accusations, heavy with unspoken threats. When Evelyn spoke again, her prim voice dripped venom. "Clearly this wedding debacle has overwhelmed that dramatic little mind of yours. Let's avoid further unpleasantness for all parties, shall we?" The implication stood starkly against her genteel words. Comply or live to regret it. This time I embraced my fury like armor. "Here's an idea," I replied, danger lurking beneath my steady tone. "Stay out of my life from this moment on. Keep your toxicity away from me and we'll have no issue." I relished the sharp intake of breath through the phone, waited eagerly for her scathing retort. Instead, flat resignation greeted me after a taut minute. "I see. Well then." Her icy words sliced the tense silence between us. "I wish you luck finding someone willing to tolerate that disrespectful attitude of yours. You'll certainly need it with your deficiencies." I stood trembling on that busy sidewalk long after she disconnected. The final veiled insult echoed in my ears, an ominous portent. But this time I refused to cower before Evelyn's threats. I would have the last word. Squaring my shoulders, I continued onward with purpose, fueling each stride. My taxi waited around the corner, engine rumbling in anticipation. I slid inside, resolve stealing my nerves. "Where to, miss?" One glance at Derek's desperate stream of texts solidified my intent. "The airport," I announced. "I'm taking back my life." The tropical heat enveloped me like a heavy wool blanket as I exited the airport. Despite the late hour, thick moisture clung to my skin, an apt metaphor for the drama I hoped to leave behind. I breathed deeply, orienting myself in this foreign environment. The scent of salt and palm trees mingled with exhaust fumes as luggage-toting tourists filed past me to awaiting cars. So different from the carefully cultivated towers of steel and glass I designed, yet intriguing in its chaotic harmony all the same. As I headed toward the taxi queue, my burner phone vibrated, startling me from my contemplative reprieve. I grimaced, expecting another pleading missive from Derek, likely begging me to reconcile after his latest sob session with Mommy Dearest. The coward remained so securely apron-stringed I wagered Evelyn still taste-tested his meals daily. Instead, an unlisted number flashed across the cracked screen. "Against my better judgment," I answered. "Marissa Winters," I stated briskly. After the confrontation with Evelyn, taking risks felt exhilarating instead of terrifying. A throat cleared on the other end. "Marissa, it's Richard Thomas. We met at Derek's firm Christmas party a while back." I racked my brain trying to conjure a face. Flashes of ugly Christmas sweaters and watered-down cocktails surfaced. Derek introduced me to so many of his colleagues that night, few made an impression. Except... "Richard, of course," I exclaimed, snapping my fingers. "You were the only charming person in the lot. How are you?" He chuckled. "I'm well. Listen, I apologize if contacting you seems forward, but I saw your RSVP cancellation and wanted to reach out." I bristled, preparing a frosty retort about gossip chains, but Richard continued sincerely, giving me pause. "Truly sorry if I'm overstepping, but from our conversation at the party, you seemed quite lovely and too mature for Derek's circle." He hesitated before adding gently, "I guess my instincts were right, considering the broken engagement." My defensiveness wavered at his somber tone. Perhaps word spread about Derek's family sabotaging our wedding far and wide if sympathetic colleagues reached out. Their deceit impacting my reputation fueled my next bold move. I smiled slyly. "Richard, no need to apologize for calling. In fact, I'd love to get coffee sometime and... chat." I put slight emphasis on the final word, implying more. He inhaled sharply, clearly not expecting my response, but he recovered smoothly. "Chat, huh? I'd be delighted. Maybe over dinner instead when you're next in town? It's a date." After finalizing plans to meet up in a few weeks, I hung up feeling re-energized. An attractive, successful man sought my company despite the gossip. Already my revenge stirred interest. Whistling to myself, I climbed into the waiting taxi, directing the driver to my oceanside resort. As we lurched into chaotic traffic under swaying palms, I reflected on the remaining loose ends awaiting my return home. But for now, tropical adventure called. And with Richard's intriguing overture, both business and pleasure soon awaited me. Stunning Derek's circles with my quick rebound would deliver the ultimate vengeance. I intended to savor every minute of their downfall, starting now. The weeks apart served me well, bringing much-needed distance and clarity. I channeled my energy into the budding relationship with Richard, now my official boyfriend. He accompanied me to various industry events, stealing Derek's spotlight effortlessly with his charisma and genuinely supportive nature. My reputation not only remained untarnished from the broken engagement, but improved tenfold on Richard's arm. Still, the thirst for vengeance simmered beneath the surface as Evelyn and Derek kept painfully low profiles in avoidance. Their absence from the social scene fueled rumors faster than any coordinated scheme. Josie kept me informed of the choicest gossip tidbits concerning their family's dirty laundry airing. "The vultures are circling," Josie commented one night as we reviewed her intelligence over dinner. "With you AWOL and their circle fractured, people feel emboldened to question Evelyn's authority." I smirked at that, taking a deliberately slow sip of wine, savoring the news. "Perfect. Those frauds deserve every ounce of scrutiny coming their way. What about Derek?" "Oh, he's positively miserable according to office chatter," Josie replied with relish. "Got passed over for some promotion thanks to your little coffee confrontation exposing his weak backbone." My laughter echoed around the table, unleashed and carefree at last. Let Derek drown in the career limbo his mommy dear sentenced him to, chained under her supervision. Served the coward right for casting me aside at her command. Several weeks later, karma came full circle at a benefit gala. I glided into the opulent ballroom on Richard's arm, effortlessly commanding attention in a shimmering A-line gown, exposing just enough skin to make heads turn discreetly. Outwardly cool and collected, despite the RSVP listing, Derek and his parents in attendance, I prepared to deliver a killing blow to their social standing. As we mingled casually amidst tinkling glasses and boisterous laughter, I spotted my targets whispering together in a distant corner. From their huddled postures and darting eyes, they clearly sensed predatory danger, but found themselves unable to escape my trap. I left Richard chatting with a colleague and cut deliberately across the room, 2 flutes of champagne in hand, as I closed in for the attack. My glittering smile remained locked in place as I stepped neatly into their space, just as their urgent whispers died. "Evelyn, darling!" I exclaimed brightly, leaning in to brush her stiff cheek with mine as I extended a champagne glass. "How wonderful to see you." Evelyn's answering smile sharpened into a grimace under her expertly blended makeup. Derek pointedly avoided my gaze beside her, wilting under the heat of my satisfying revenge. "Marissa," Evelyn replied, thin as glass and just as delicate. What a surprise. Her eyes tracked Richard subtly as he observed our interaction nearby, assessing the new threat. I maintained my dazzling grin, refusing to cede ground. The board was so generous to include me for Table 9's auction item tonight, though I'm certain my date outbid your usual ask. I flashed my eyes coyly toward Richard, watching realization sink Evelyn's painted features. Yes, well, she faltered uncharacteristically. I suppose we misjudged your resilience after that unpleasant incident. Derek cringed at the mention, but remained silent. Still spineless as ever then. I almost pitied his misery. Almost. Instead, I channeled that simmering fury into a final, brutal strike. I stepped nearer and dropped my voice. Clearly you underestimated me, Evelyn dear, attempted to bury me socially and career-wise, but only dug your own grave. I gestured subtly around us where partygoers observed our tense exchange. Rumors abound regarding certain indiscretions and manipulations, all thanks to your bungled schemes. Her eyes narrowed, hard and reflective as glass, but I continued before she uttered the threat teetering behind her lips. However, seeing as tonight heralds new beginnings, allow me to extend professional courtesy. I allowed frost to permeate my sugary tone. Stay out of my way permanently, and perhaps I refrain from exposing every excruciating detail of your family's cruelty. Are we clear? Evelyn's expression soured, no doubt swallowing venom. Through rigid lips she forced out, "Crystal." I crumpled my champagne flute delicately in one hand, savoring her demise. "Excellent. Do give Richard and me some space. We have a charity auction to win. Ta-ta!" I sauntered away after one lingering look at Derek's crestfallen face, riding the ultimate high of sweet revenge. Their reputations smoldered in ruins thanks to my flawless execution. Now, at long last, balance